Idlers and Skivers by Keith Marsden. We're the idlers, we're the skivers, we're the undeserving poor. How prettily we curtsy and we bow. And we're standing cap in hand again outside the rich man's door, for the new Victorian age is starting now. And we mind our manners as before, we watch our Q's and P's. We're grateful for the handout and we always try to please. And we will not raise our head if they prefer us on our knees. For we're just the idle, undeserving poor. And we're knocking at the door, knocking at the door, and a penny in the poor man's hat will no longer do. You better open wide and let us come inside, for the knocking's nearly over and the door is coming through. We were just jumped up oiks and urks, we undeserving poor, when we found ourselves the masters for a day. For we'd fought and bled and died a lot to win the Second War, and we thought we had the right to have our say. So we sang the New Jerusalem. They didn't like the song. They threw their spanners in the work and laughed when all went wrong. And they might have known they'd never let us be the masters long, not the jumped up oiks, the undeserving poor. And we're knocking at the door, knocking at the door, and a penny in the poor man's hat will no longer do. You better open wide and let us come inside, for the knocking's nearly over and the door is coming through. Then they taught us to be selfish, never had it go so good poor, and they dangled such a tempting juicy fly. And we saw their tatty goodies in an I'm all right Jack Shaw store, and we couldn't wait to rush inside and buy. For money was the Godhead and the only gospel creed. We sold our gains to fill the had man's non-existent need, with a mess of tatty trinkets and a pile of plastic beads. And we remained the idle, undeserving poor. And we're knocking at the door, knocking at the door, and a penny in the poor man's hat will no longer do. You better open wide and let us come inside, for the knocking's nearly over and the door is coming through. Then we trusted in their promises, we undeserving poor, as they said we marched towards a sunlit plain. All the dark times were behind us, only golden times before, but it turned into the same old lies again. For they gave the rope we asked for, we hadn't got a care. They showed us to the scaffold, and we blithely climbed the chair. And they kicked away the trap and left us hanging in the air. And we're hanging still, the undeserving poor. And we're knocking at the door, knocking at the door, and a penny in the poor man's hat will no longer do. You better open wide and let us come inside, for the knocking's nearly over and the door is coming through. And if you're not enlisted in the army of the poor, never fear, you'll call up papers on the way. Or perhaps you think you're fireproof, well you'd better think some more, for your turn is coming soon some future day. For they don't need you on the land now, or on the factory floor. They don't even need you when they start the final war. Just be ready when they start to think, what do they need you for? when you jumped up wakes the undeserving poor. And then knocking at the door, knocking at the door, and a penny in the poor man's hat will no longer do. You better open wide and let us come inside, for the knocking's nearly over and the door is coming through. And you haven't done your duty when you sung about the poor, if you haven't raised a hand to ease their plight. If you sing the chorus louder, it might ease your conscience more, but pious words do not excuse you from the fight. For the times are getting harder, and we haven't seen the worst. They still foul the wells of plenty, while so many die of thirst. And we will rebuild Jerusalem and clean the temple first, and they'll wish they'd taken pity on the poor. And we're knocking at the door, knocking at the door, and the penny in the poor man's hat will no longer do. You better open wide and let us come inside, for the knocking's nearly over and the door is coming through.